Hi people, good morning. I'm Ivan Verstyuk, I'm in Kiev. It's November 28th, early morning, dark outside my windows, but I get some electricity which probably gonna be turned off soon. But I have a couple of minutes to talk through what we're going through. The shortages in all kinds of services remain. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal reported yesterday that he did all he could to improve the situation with electricity supply, with water supply. Though the energy system in Ukraine still can't meet all the demand for power, and many people have to go and live without electricity in their houses, which is especially worrying for those families that have children, because children, they've been having these online lessons instead of regular normal school, and now those online lessons are not available, and kids have to be homeschooled, and parents have to take care of those homeschooled kids. And this is hard because not all the parents are prepared how to teach Ukrainian literature, Ukrainian history, math, physics, chemistry, biology, sociology, economics. You gotta learn this stuff first before you can teach it to your son or your daughter. That's hard. Well, now let me explain you why Russia is doing this. Ruining the energy system has several points. The first one, obviously, is ruining Ukraine's economy and future economic recovery, which will be happening after the war. Right, so Ukrainian economy consumes lots of electricity, whether those are industries or private citizens. And by taking away like half of Ukraine's electricity capacities, Russia and Kremlin, they think that they're putting Ukrainian economy on its knees, that it won't be able to stand up from in the next couple of years, maybe even 5 years, because, restoring electricity is going to be technically complicated, capital intensive, and this is hard. Well, the other important thing is that Russians are trying to produce more chaos and destabilization within the Ukrainian society. How that works? Middle class people at some point might feel, oh, come on, we've had enough. We want our electricity back. We want our internet connection back. We want our mobile connection back. So let's stop the war right there. When stop the fighting and ask Russians not to bomb our energy system anymore because we want to live a normal life. That's the Russian plan, how Ukrainian people would react. Though that's not going to happen. People will never say it, will never admit, frankly and publicly, that they want to stop the war because there is no electricity. Well, they might be having those second thoughts, whether, well, this is so hard, it's getting so hard, and cold winter coming, how are we going to live? No water, no electricity, no heating, this is hard. But to us, winning the war is much more important than having this regular comfort in our lives. Russia has been producing damage to us as a nation and to our culture, national culture, not even for years or decades, but for centuries. And to restore the balance, to restore the normality in Ukraine, which was destroyed by the Russian Federation, we need to win the war. This is a choice that we are making. We want to win this war because this is important to us as a political nation. Only winning the war will let us to re-establish Ukraine as a proper European democracy, member of the European Union, which wants to live rich, comfortable life, which would be based on the rule of law. And our army is fighting exactly for that purpose. We want our territories back, we want our freedom back, and there is no way we're going to accept Russian rules. Russians, they used to establish their rules here. They used to establish their rules. In culture, Russians would own like bookstores in Kiev and would tell us what we should read. They would bring literature from Russia and say, hey, we get good literature in Russia, buy and read it. And it was all pro-Russian. They had their church in Ukraine, where priests and bishops were preaching that we need to accept Russia and its rules, because Russia is a great spiritual country. And like dozens of bishops, hundreds of priests were telling this to believers at every Orthodox liturgy. And then also Russians had their presence in business, where they would own lots of shopping malls, all kind of retail organizations, energy banks. Still some Russian banks remain in Ukraine. It's kind of weird during the war to have a Russian bank operating in Ukraine. And those banks, they like, come on, we're just going to do business. It's not like we're political, but come on, we can trust Russian bank who says that it's not going to be political. Russians are used to lying. They lie all the time. They've been lying for years. And also the part of the plan that Kremlin created, it was that they would get support from those Ukrainians who have pro-Russian views or Soviet nostalgia. But that all stopped on February 24th, when Russian tanks crossed the border and started shelling Ukrainian cities, towns, and villages. Those pro-Russian views, they evaporated immediately. No one wants to live how Russians live in their country. They're poor. Their territories in the north, in Siberia, in the south are so poor and lack proper development, and no one ever invests anything in there. Well, Vladimir Putin has been investing a lot in Moscow, in Petersburg, building skyscrapers and building roads and bridges and, providing mortgage loans so people there would get comfortable houses and apartments. But nothing of the type was done to people who live in central Russia, in northern Russia. They're all poor. Or take eastern Russia, when they were like the Far East, the Pacific Ocean region. They're very, very poor there. We do not want to have that type of development here in Ukraine. We are pursuing the European path, where we want to live the way all the European Union countries live. That's what we are fighting for. Just let us make our own pro-European choice. We are a part of the European civilization. We've been part of that civilization for centuries. It's not even a matter of doubts about that. Well, if Russia wants to live in a corrupt, totalitarian way, go ahead. We don't care. You want to live in poverty, go ahead. Go ahead. And don't tell us that you're rich because you have gas and oil and steel industry and banking. You can't trust Russian banks. You can't trust Russia's energy supplies, because they have their anti-humanistic policy and philosophy behind all the Russian business and all the Russian oligarchs. They have to fulfill Kremlin's political goals. We can't trust them anymore. Neither here in Ukraine, nor in anywhere in the world, nor in any of the countries. Russians, they used to do business in Germany, in United Kingdom, in the United States. Everywhere you could meet Russian business people who would be like offering you deals. No more of that type of business. Russia is unacceptable on the business scene anymore. So instead of ruining our solidarity by destroying our electricity system and our water supply system, Russians have produced more hatred and anger against them here in Ukraine. That's the result of their strategy. Honestly, this is hard to live through. My life, which has never been easy, has prepared me for this, to live through the challenges. But many middle-class people are really obsessed with how they're going to survive the war. That's a problem that the Ukrainian government and our leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, are trying to solve, and they're doing it quite successfully, having all the support from the population that they need. But Russian plan now creates more and more anger. People are angry at Russians. Ukrainians are mad at Russians. We want to tell all the Russians, go home. Go home now. We don't need you here. Russians, go home.